Hey, what's going on, everybody? In this video, we are going to make a site plan in Revit like the one you're seeing here. So we're going to go over a few things. One is bringing in just quickly some CAD Mapper line work to get a lot of our surrounding context. Then we're going to also bring in topography from Google, and we're going to be able to make our topography lines automatic and also get the elevations on there correctly. And then we're going to make sure that our project is orientated correctly to where north is. So if it's on a slant, there's a difference between project north and true north. So without further ado, we're going to get into the video. If you don't mind just taking a second to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Also, don't forget to subscribe as well. So I have a new project that's opening up. I'm in the site plan view, so under floor plans I went to site. And now I'm going to bounce over to a new window of CAD Mapper. And in CAD Mapper, I just can search for my location, and I'm going to click on SketchUp. And so I'm at cadmapper.com. I've typed in a location that I wanted to search for, clicked on SketchUp, and then what I'm also doing here is I'm unchecking topography and contours because we're going to get that from a different source. And we're going to bring in 3D buildings. And if no data, we'll just set our false height to about 3 meters, which is about 9 feet. So then from there, I also just adjust highways, roads, paths, and I just adjust to these settings here, so that way any of the trails that come in correctly. Then I click on Create File, and from there, we get a little window here that allows us to download the file, and I like bringing it into SketchUp first instead of just DXF straight into Revit, because it allows you to scale it a little bit better and adjust it a little bit better, I find. So then with that downloaded, I have SketchUp open, and now there is a web version of SketchUp. You don't want that one. It can't export your line work, so you have to get a trial version of SketchUp or buy SketchUp Pro. And the trial version works just fine for this. So then from here, we're going to import our downloaded CAD Mapper. So I'm going to bring in the line work from CAD Mapper. And so I'm in my downloads, CAD Mapper, and I'm looking for a SketchUp file. And there it is. I'm going to click on import. And like I said before, I like bringing in the CAD Mapper line work because it comes in to SketchUp at the right size, and so we can just go and just double check that really quick. And I knew that this road was right around 19, so that's perfect. And so right now you can see the origin is right here, and what I want to do here is place that origin about where the project is going to be. And so I know my site is going to be where these two buildings are located, so I'm going to put the origin right on the corner of the property line of that site. So I'm going to click on the move command, and I'm going to snap right to that corner, and this is just going to act as a reference point as I bring things in and out of my program. So if I need to go into Rhino or something like that, I know where my base point of my project is going to be. So now that I have this, I'm going to go to File, I'm going to say Save, and then I'm also going to export it as a 3D model, and this is what we're going to bring into Revit. So from here, I'm also going to say that to the desktop, and here I'm just going to call it CAD Mapper, and we'll just check our options. I just keep everything checked, and then export. So now that we have this, we're going to open up a new file in SketchUp, which we're going to get our terrain from. Now that I have that done, I'm going to minimize SketchUp, and in the site plan, here I'm going to go to Insert, Import CAD, and we're going to import in the file that we just saved to our desktop. And it's going to be a DWG file this time, CAD Mapper Site, and we don't want current view only. We want this to actually come in all views, so that way we can make some nice 3D renderings later, and we can just hide it for the time being if we don't want to see it in any particular view. I'm going to bring it in black and white. Auto origin to origin is good, and we're going to place it at floor 1. But just notice that you can adjust all these settings if you so choose. And then from here, we're just going to say open. And what's kind of nice, when we set up that origin already, our project base point, which is this circle, already comes in where we want it to. So now we have a good reference for our project. And then I can come in and I can unpin this. And if I unpin it, we can explode it and explode it. And then we can edit. And so if I didn't want these two existing buildings to be on the site, I can go and delete those out. If we go to our 3D view, we can see all the geometry that came in 3D. And so now we have this really cool map that came in on 3D. And so now if I highlight everything, then I can repin that, stick a thumbtack in it, and then that'll help stop it from moving accidentally. So we can unpin things as we need now individually if we wanted to edit them or move them. Okay, so now that we have this, let's take a look at how high it ends up in our elevations. So all of this this CAD Mapper line work comes in, and if we uncrop this, so everything comes in right around floor 1, so that's great. So now we're going to go back to our site plan, and we're going to bring in some topography. So we're done with CAD Mapper, so I'm going to go into SketchUp, and we're going to do File, New, and with this new file, we are going to then go to Geolocation, Add Location. And depending on the type of SketchUp that you're using, that sometimes, like for the web-based version, it's over on the right. You have to add it that way. But for this 2020 version, it's up in the file location. And then this is the address that I'm using for the site. So it's like right here. I'm just going to say search. And then it takes us to this. And then select region. Find the region that you like. And say import. And then it's going to come into our model. Now we want to, this one is pretty accurate, but not entirely accurate. So what we're going to do here is we're going to click on this. The red boundary means it's locked. Right click and unlock it. And then we're going to use our move command. And we want to click on where that corner is of our site. So by zooming in, we can be a little more accurate. And then we're going to snap it right to the origin. So that way we're pretty much lining everything up how it was. Then I'm going to hit escape and spacebar and back out of that. Now we want to go to File, and we want to Geolocation, Show Terrain. That turns it into a 3D model. Now this is pretty flat terrain. It only changes by a couple feet from one corner to another, so it doesn't move that much. But it's important to be able to make the map for us to have this slope to know where water is going to go. And so from here, I'm going to go to File. I'm going to Export 3D Model. So very similar to before, but now we're just going to call it terrain. Can't type. Alright, so terrain site, and we're just going to check our options, everything's good, and say export. And now we can get out of SketchUp again, back into Revit. Very similar process. So from here, I'm in my site plan view. I'm going to go to Insert, Import CAD. And from here, we're going to click on our terrain site. Same thing, we want it in all the views, keep it black and white. We're going to put it at floor 1, auto origin to origin, so everything should line up. So now we're just going to bring it in, say open. And we have this surface, so if we go in 3D, we just have like this surface. So it doesn't look that great right now, but what we can do here is go to Massing and Site, Type of Surface, and we're going to create from import, select Import Instance. We're going to click on the terrain, and everything checked should be okay, and just say okay. And it's going to create topography for us based on that surface. And then we can check it off for right now. And now what we can do is click on the surface itself. So that's the one that we just imported, and we can either delete it or hide it. I'm just going to hide it right now. And so now we have this terrain map, that topographic map that SketchUp has made for us. Now note that the buildings are going to probably sit on it a little goofy, so you might have to adjust their heights or whatever. But that's our topography map. And if we want to go to our actual site plan, we need to hide the that surface as well. So you know what, it's actually going to be a little bit easier if we go through and we click on the little light bulb down here and we delete out the original surface, because we can always load that back in. So, alright, so now we're going to go into Site, and we have our map, but it's blocking a lot of our line work from CAD Mapper. So the thing that we need to do here is right click on it once we've selected it, and then we go to Override Graphics in View by Element. And we're going to take this guy, and we could halftone it too if we want to make it a little more subtle, but I'm going to go 100% transparency, apply, and OK. And now we can see through it. But notice that since this site doesn't slope that much, I barely get any lines, so it's kind of hard to read this topography map, right? It's really hard to understand which way it would be sloping. So what I'm going to do now is go into 3D, and we're going to select our terrain, and then I'm going to go to Massing and Site, and notice right now in 3D we can't label our contours, but I can do that in a plan view. And also I can go down on this model site, drop the arrow, and we can change the increments value. So if I want intervals of 1 foot and say apply, then I'm going to have more lines pop up. Each line represents 1 foot, and that's where it's going to place our values. And then we can also go and add in some additional increments as well if we wanted to. So I'm just going to say apply and OK. And so now at every foot we have line work, and if we go back to our site, we can still see that there's it hasn't really updated much. So let's adjust that again. So looking at it in this view, let's go and change it to like every 4 inches. Let's add an increment. So that should be able to update and say OK. So now this becomes a little bit easier to read. And I think this might be an error here that goes around this project base point. It looks like it's really high in this point. So I need to edit the surface. So I want to do that as well. So I'm going to go and select the surface in 3D since it's easier. I'm going to go back to my site plan. And if I somehow clicked off of it, if you hit Control and left arrow, it'll get your last selection. And so from here we can go to Edit Surface. And right here I have a sense that these points somehow are not right. So I'm just going to go and delete those. And this looks like more true to what the surface is. I'm going to check that off. And then if we Control left again, looks like it's not going to give it to us since we had the menu. So we're just going to go and select that again. Go back to Site. And now if we go to Massing and Site, Label Contours, I'm going to go from the top left of the drawing to the bottom right, and I'm going to also label in a couple other spots. Anywhere that this line passes through the topography lines, it'll automatically generate our numbers for us on here. And then I'm just going to go and click off and hit Escape. So now that I have these numbers, I know that this isn't truly 8 inches above sea level. Right now this is telling me that it's 8 inches above where level 1 is, where everything else is landed. And so in order to truly get this accurate, what I want to do is click on the light bulb in an elevation view, and we want to be able to select the triangle, which is the survey point. So the circle is the project base point, and then the triangle is the survey point. So if I hit Tab and click again, I see I have the survey point. Now with the survey point, I can go and move it in an elevation view, and that'll change where it is relative to my topography lines. Then I can go and update those topography lines, those labels. So what I need to do is go to a website called the USGS National Map. So that's what this website is, and you go and click on the National Map Viewer. This works if you're in the United States. Other countries will have their own maps as well. So go to wherever you can find maps for your locations. When you're in the map, I went and did a base map of like gray, and then I went under the layers for the map, and if you check elevation contours, it'll give you an idea of about how far above sea level you are. Sea level is used commonly for elevations as a base point, right? Because water stays consistent no matter what the ground is that it's on. So measuring up from sea level is a good base point. And so this land is 600 feet above sea level along this left edge. So like the top left of our site is about 600, and then it actually starts to slope down as we go. But all we need to know is that 600 is kind of over here top left. So now that we know that, what we can do here is move our elevation marker with the move, and we can click anywhere as long as we're going down. And let's start with 600 feet and kind of see where we land on our site elevation map. So I'm going to click 600 feet. And if I zoom out, I can see that we're way down here now. And that's our survey marker. So now I can go back to the site, and I want to be able to select those numbers. So I'm going to go and click on those numbers. And then we can go to Edit Type, Duplicate, and we want to label this from survey marker. Say OK. And our reference point is going to be from the survey point, and say OK. And now we know that we're at 600 feet, 8 inches, and then by the time we get down here, okay, we have to make all those change. So I have to select on that, right click, select all instances, the entire project. So now we have all those labels, and then we change it to from survey marker. There we go. Okay, so now we're at 600 feet, and then we start to drop down towards like 599. So that's pretty good. We can see that the site slopes from the top left to the bottom right, and all we had to know was that we were about 600 feet over here to the left. Now if I think this is a little high, maybe by 8 inches, all we got to do then is go back to our elevation view, click on our marker, click on move, and then move it up, and let's just move it up 8 inches. And so now if I go and click back on my site, it's 600 now in that region, and everything's adjusted by 8 inches. The reason I moved that down is because I wanted to give the impression that we're elevated up above sea level from that survey marker. What's also really nice about doing it this way is that if we go to our 3D model, if we go to import or export, everything has stayed true to where it is when we brought it in. So we didn't physically move anything, which makes it really nice when we go to import some more stuff from SketchUp or export into another program. Now that we have this, we're pretty much done. We just want to be able to make sure that our project is orientated to true north. So I'm going to go and just open up Google Maps. And with Google Maps, we can go and we can check our building location in relation to north. And so with that in, I'm looking at Google Maps, and we can see that our road for North Avenue kind of tilts actually a little bit down to the left. So everything's a little bit off of where north, south, and east, west would be. Like true north is straight up, right? And our we can see North Avenue kind of slants down to the left here. So in here, if I go and I go to the actual circle here, angle to true north is where we can adjust that. So if we are, let's say, 1 degree, and I think I did this before, and I think it was like 1.5 degrees off, we can go and change that. And then over here in the settings for the view, so I'm just clicked off into the site, we can go angle to true north. So I'm going to scroll down until I find, let's just do this a little more set here, angle to true north, and I always have such a hard time finding this. Orientation, project north. Okay, so I want to change that to true north, and I want you to see what happens. So it tilts, so I went the wrong way. So I'm just going to click on that, and we're going to change that to a negative 150 degrees, 150 degrees. So then it tilts over here to the left. And if it feels too extreme, which we can go back into maps and see how that looks relative. And it looks actually like it follows it pretty true, maybe a little extreme. And you can also just bring in the image if you want, but it looks, I'm just holding these roads over and imagining these lines coming straight up, and it looks like we got it pretty good. So if we want to adjust it more, we can, but that's angle to true north. So when you go to draw, when you go to actually draw your building, you don't want to draw on like a 1 degree angle. So what you want to do is keep it at project north now, and then true north is what you would do when you go to actually put it into your sheets. So I would go over to like my site plan sheet, and then I would get my site, and I'd bring that site in, and I would drop it in just like so, and then I can go and click in. I've done, let's say I pretend I finished drawing my building, and then I would say, okay, let's print this out in true north for our client to see. And then the other thing we want to do is like bring in our annotations. So I would go down, and I've downloaded these from Revit City. So Revit City, if you're not familiar, you can go and search downloads, and I like this graphic scale, one size fits all. And they also have like a north arrow that you can get. And so I'm going to go and bring in a graphic scale. And so I'm just going to go and drag in a graphic scale that I like, drop that in, and we can adjust that in a second. And for here, we'll make this a little shorter, and then we'll bring this down. I like to line it up with the line right here. And then we will also bring in a north arrow, so I like using this one that looks like this. And then to keep everything nice, we're going to align those together. And then from here, we need to turn this north arrow, well, no, actually this north arrow stays, so we can see that our site is on a little bit of a slant. So now we have to adjust our graphic scale. So right now, the scale I brought in is 1 inch equals 60 feet. So I'm going to go click on that graphic scale, say edit type, duplicate. I'm going to call it 1 inch equals 60 feet, and say okay. That's the name. X is going to be what it is in feet, so 60. Everything updates nicely on this scale, and then we're all set on that. So now that I have my CAD mapper, I have my terrain, I have it labeled, I have the site, I have orientation to true north, we've done a really good site plan. So now we're ready to go and start drawing our building and get into building pads and regrading, and all of those tools are under massing and site. When you're in the actual site plan, you can use them, and you'll be able to create a really nice site plan and project on a real context with all this information that was brought in from real life from Google and CAD Mapper, and it turns out to be a really nice way to illustrate your drawings. Once again, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to keep making videos like this one, and the more support, the more it's appreciated. So definitely thanks for watching. I know it was a lengthy video, but thanks for sticking with me, and I know this is going to turn out really nice for your project. Don't forget to save and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.